Welcome to the Drum Shuffle, a podcast offering insights, perspectives, and conversations for drummers. I'm your host, Jamie Eads. Hey everybody, and welcome to the Drum Shuffle. Jamie Eads here. This is episode number 2. Hope everybody's doing well and all things drum related are locked down for you. Today's show, we have a very special guest. Scott Hessel of the Gin Blossoms will be joining us here in just a moment. The theme of our conversation is going to be perseverance and inspiration. When you hear Scott's story, you'll understand exactly what I'm talking about. Couple of things that I'd like to mention right here at the top of the show. Our heartfelt thanks to everybody that reached out after the first episode. I truly appreciated all the feedback, comments, and well wishes for the show. As always, please keep your comments, suggestions, and questions coming our way. We can be reached at thedrumshufflepodcast@gmail.com. Thedrumshuffle.com is our web address. And you can find me over at jamieeads.com. If you enjoy the show, please take a minute to leave us a rating and review on iTunes, Stitcher, or whatever platform you're using to listen. It helps us tremendously to expand our listeners and continue to grow. We really do appreciate it. 25 years ago, a band burst onto the musical landscape from Tempe, Arizona called the Gin Blossoms. They released a record called New Miserable Experience that sold well over 4 million records, certified 4 times platinum, followed up by an album in 1996 called Congratulations, I'm Sorry that was certified platinum as well. Goes without saying, if you were alive in the 90s, you could not turn on a radio or MTV without seeing the Gin Blossoms. I am very pleased to be joined today by their drummer, Scott Hessel. Hey, Scott, thanks for joining us on the Drum Shuffle. How are you tonight?
Hey, I'm doing great, Jamie. My pleasure.
Fantastic. We really appreciate your time. Welcome to the show. It is my understanding that you are in the process of getting ready to head out on a big run of dates with the Gin Blossoms. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, sorry if I'm... my concentration is not at full. I'm counting the pairs of socks as we speak that I'm needing to have for the next 2 weeks. So
that is the life of a touring musician, is it not?
It really is indeed. You get back from any sort of run, be it 3 days or three months in some cases, and you never really feel like you're quite home. You put your suitcase in the corner. And you wish it would go away to a certain extent, but then you realize, well, if it goes away, then I'm not working. So,
well, that's true. The checks are always better when you're not at home, I'm assuming.
Yes, yes.
So, well, fantastic. Again, thanks for being here. Scott, what I'd really like to start with, this might make way too much sense, but I thought we might try to go through chronologically. I would be interested in knowing, where you grew up, what part of the country you're from, when and why did you start playing the drums, anything that you want to touch on about your education or influences, past bands, really whatever you'd like to go through, but kind of start us at the beginning on how this journey began for you.
Sure. I was born in the Christmas of 1967 in a humble abode in sunny Jacksonville, Florida. And my dad had work out there. And to be honest, I don't remember exactly how old I was. I'm guessing that maybe I was 2 or 3 at the most. But I have distinct and very vivid memories of playing with these things called Lincoln log sets.
Oh yeah, sure.
Where I guess it was the precursor to Legos. And this story probably, maybe I wouldn't even be playing drums if they had Legos at that point and not Lincoln Logs. But I was using Lincoln Logs as drumsticks, and I would take these Lincoln Logs and I would just hit things with them, just anything that would be laying around. And one day I kind of discovered the magic of something called a Charles Chips can. Chips in those days, I sound like I'm 95 years old telling the story, but chips in those days they would appear in these giant metal cans, but they were perfect. They looked like kind of, just like a little miniature trash can, like a little snare drum. So I would use that and just bang the crap out of those things. And that was sort of where I developed my expertise in rudiments, I suppose. The single stroke roll was developed on the Charles Chips can with Lincoln Logs.
That's fantastic.
So I did that, and then I think my parents realized, okay, we can't have this nonsense going on. So they got me one of those cute little, Sears and Roebuck's drum sets that you get for, $15. And I sat down behind that. And I guess I thought I was Keith Moon because I broke the heads in the morning of Christmas. I couldn't, no, you can't give me anything nice. I can't own anything nice. So broke that. And then the parents said, well, okay, you're going back to the Lincoln Logs for a while. So I really just stuck it out on the Lincoln Logs for several years. And then I went through this latency period where I wasn't interested in drums at all. I didn't really have any inclination that I was ever going to be a musician. I never thought about music. I was, just went to school and played baseball and did all the normal stuff that, kids do when you're growing up. And one Christmas when I was about 11 years old, I heard this rustling. Again, everything seems to happen around Christmas, but I heard this rustling. They said, okay, go to your room and don't come out. Your Christmas present is getting here. And I guess I learned that there was no real Santa Claus, but by then. And I hear this noise and I'm thinking, oh, this is awesome. My parents are delivering exactly what I want in life, a pool table. For some reason, I wanted a pool table, and I was, you could not imagine my disappointment when I went out the next morning and found that there was this beautiful Tama black Imperial Star drum set up there for me. I looked at my parents like, how could you betray my dreams of being a pool shark?
Well, either way, you were headed for a life of sin, right?
exactly right. And so, and then you can't imagine their disappointment when I didn't even want to play it. I mean, I had no idea, like, it felt too big for me. It didn't have the feel of the Lincoln Logs and the Charles Chips can. It just, everything felt wrong. So, and mind you, I had not had a single lesson in my life, and I surely was not interested in a lesson. So the drum set sort of just sat there, and my best friend at the time used to come over, and he was the one who was interested in playing drums. And I used to just sort of sit in the corner and watch him play drums, and I was just like, okay, well, that's cool. Glad you're enjoying my drum set. Do you have anything that I can borrow of yours? So that sort of went on for a couple of years, and then I eventually graduated from elementary school, and I figured out, okay, well, maybe I should, do something in high school that's drum related. So I joined the marching band, and they put me on the bass drum, which to me, putting a kid on bass drum is basically tantamount to saying, we really don't want you in this band. Just give up. You just abandon this immediately. But I stuck with it for the first semester, and then they moved me to quad drums, and that's when the fun started happening, because I realized, okay, well, this now feels like, A, I'm really playing the drums, and B, it feels more like those Lincoln Logs that I was missing for all those years.
Absolutely.
So I was playing on the quads in the marching band and feeling really like, I felt like I was pretty good at it. Like I didn't really have any formal training, and to this day I've still never had any formal training. I remember they tried to give me a lesson during that time at the school, and I was oblivious. I was like, I can't follow what you're telling me. Just give me the sticks. So I started started playing on my own. I went back to that drum set that had been sitting in the corner gathering dust, and I started playing along with records. Which I know, so many people do. And those records were, I was listening to the Police, and Rush, and just basically anything that was really drum heavy,
sure,
as far as music goes. And I finally, it dawned on me one day. I was sitting in a friend's Suburban in high school, and he actually was an amazing drummer on the drum kit. And we were just sitting there and listening critically to, I remember the record, it was Ghost in the Machine by the Police. And we were talking about the sound of Stuart Copeland's snare drum. And
very
it
distinct.
All clicked for me. Yeah, it all clicked for me. I thought, this is it. This is what this is what I want to do. I want to be as cool as the guy, first of all, that's sitting next to me, who can play the drum set. And then secondly, I want to be involved in something that sounds so amazing when you put it on a car stereo. I want to be a part of that. I don't know how, I don't know what I'm going to have to do, but that's it.
The passion was born at that point.
It really was. Yeah. At that moment, I was a sophomore in high school, and I heard, One World is Enough for All of Us. One World, Not Three, I think is the name of the song. And I thought, this is it. And so I went home and I started really, really digging in and listening to records, and not only, trying to play with them, but starting to actually just, instead of fooling my way through and faking my way through parts, slowing things down and repeating and listening and trying to figure out, all right, how did they do what they did? Did they use this hand, or what, exactly what went on here?
Yeah, I mean, that's what we all do as young drummers, is try to deconstruct what you're hearing from your influences and your idols, and try to figure out, how do I emulate that and make it sound the same? We all go through that for sure. Totally.
And, if I had been, if I had even known the word deconstruct at that point in my life, I would have realized that's what I'm doing. I'm deconstructing these musicians who I'm idolizing, and figuring it all out on my own. I probably should have been, paying somebody to help me out with the process at that point, but I didn't know any better. I thought, well, this is what I'll do.
Sure. Well, and there's a certain level of satisfaction that comes from, figuring it out. I mean, I went through that. I'm a guy that doesn't have a whole lot of formal training as a drummer. Just figuring out and playing along with those records until your fingers bleed, your hands bleed, just woodshedding as a drummer, it's very fulfilling for sure.
It truly is. It truly is, especially when you leave your windows open in your neighborhood, and you see the kids popping their heads over your fence to listen to you, and they're all sort of giving you the thumbs up. Like, we weren't getting any complaints, which was cool. Like, nobody was calling the cops on me.
Yeah, you start figuring out that you're getting something right when the neighborhood's nodding their head and dancing in your yard, for sure.
That is it. People were knocking on the door saying, "Can I come in and listen to you?" And this was like, well, maybe this is the way you get girls too. Who knows? So this was all coming together for me. It was like an amazing light bulb went on. Like, okay, well, this is the way to go. So that's pretty much what I did up until the point that I figured, all right, well, maybe I should be playing with human beings. Like, maybe this, playing with records thing can only take you so far in life, and maybe it's time to start dealing with other people who are thinking the same way and playing other instruments. And once I was able to, and when I say fake my way through playing a Rush record, I truly do mean fake my way through. I was able to play my own version of Red Barchetta by Rush, or doing my own little version of YYZ. Then I realized, okay, I'm gonna look for some other kids to play with. Sure. And so that's sort of where it went from there. And I think then I was about 16, 17 years old.
And I'm assuming you started forming bands and really learning how to be part of a group.
The very first band that I played with was a band that was put together to play in a performance of Jesus Christ Superstar.
Oh, wow.
For school. I went to a prep college in Phoenix, and I don't even know. I guess it probably was through the marching band connection and people realizing that I could actually play a drum set at that point. But a couple of the people said, okay, well, you should play in this band. And I don't even think that I auditioned or anything. I think they just said, okay, well, here's the deal. You're going to have to play. It's going to be about an hour and a half long, and the music is really crazy. And I said, okay, well, is there a record? Can I listen to the original soundtrack? And they said, well, no, but there's sheet music. And that's when I froze. I was like, well, I can't read music. I never, like, I remember I told you guys I didn't do so well on that sight reading thing. So they said, okay, well, look, just do the best you can. And so I got the sheet music, and once again, it promptly went in the dumpster, and I picked up that record. And I just learned it from backwards to forwards, and I did my own little version of Jesus Christ Superstar.
Well, that's quite a way to cut your teeth in a group setting. I mean,
I've listened back to that now, and I think first of all, it's an insane. It's a great musical. It's very. I don't know if it's held up too well over the years, but it is really all over the map as far as drums are concerned. I mean, there's a drum solo. In fact, the whole thing just seems like a drum solo to me. But,
yeah, well, I mean, it covers so many styles and flavors. It's just, that's a pretty crazy way to get started, for sure.
It really was. And, I felt like, okay, well, some of these things I'm doing pretty well, but then others, I would just look at the guitarist and say, I think you should play here. I'm gonna lay out on it and just play quarter notes on the hi-hat and let you take over. So that's when I figured, okay, well, if you're, I'm in a band, it may be the Jesus Christ Superstar band,
But it's a band, right?
But it's a band nonetheless, and I'm
yeah,
playing with other entities.
absolutely. Well,
So
fast forwarding a little
yes,
bit, I mean, I'm sure that, your first gig after Jesus Christ Superstars wasn't the Gin Blossoms, so
no, it wasn't. Um,
so bridge the gap for us if you would. I mean, I know that you were in the Arizona music scene, which was fantastic, and I'm assuming this is late 80s, early 90s. Correct me if I'm wrong, but
no, you're right on.
perfect.
You're right on. In fact, I graduated from high school in '85, and Robin and I are probably the closest in age, and Robin Wilson, the lead singer of the Gin Blossoms, and I are the closest in age. And I know that he and I constantly, the two of us, start, walking down memory lane of the Phoenix music scene during that time, and it's like we not only know the same people, but our paths cross so many times, and we never even knew it at that point.
Sure.
And so, yeah, when I left high school, when I graduated from high school, I made the decision that I was going to take a year off, and I was going to pursue being in a rock band at 17. Okay, so I had been accepted to Pepperdine University, and
beautiful school.
A beautiful school, expensive school, beautiful school nonetheless. And I remember that I did not want to give up my drums, and I was trying to negotiate with the school, which was rebuffed.
How do I get these into my dorm room? Yeah.
Yes, I said, well, you're going to provide me a place to practice my drum set, correct? And they looked at me like, who do you think you are here? No, of course not. You're going to come to our school, and you're going to be, this is for academia, not your own personal, how you're going to further your burgeoning drum career. And so I decided, well, you know what, this isn't for me then. So I said, Pepperdine will always be there. I'm going to take a year off. And so I actually joined this band straight out of high school that was voted best Phoenix band by the local, I guess they have them in a lot of different cities now, but this publication called New Times. And this band was like the number one band in Phoenix local music. And they were, they kind of sounded like they were from Britain. And it was kind of interesting because they had no drummer. They played with a Lynn drum machine.
Oh,
and
wow.
So I actually replaced a Lynn drum machine in my very first real band outside of Jesus Christ Superstar. And so I joined that band, and years later, I find out that band was one of Robin Wilson's reasons why he got into bands, was because he looked at and saw the Out Crowd, which was the name of the band, and saw how cool it was, and he wanted to be in a rock band because of it.
That's fantastic.
So it's kind of weird, really. It's a strange thing to think. So that band was my first real taste of, okay, I am now not in a Jesus Christ Superstar band. I am in a real rock and roll band, and we're going to play, we're going to go outside and play places like Tucson, Arizona, or we're going to make a drive out to Los Angeles and do a showcase. And I mean, all of this is very strange for me because, I'm thinking, well, this is actually kind of professional. I'm going from 0 to 60, and these guys have label interest, and I don't even know what label interest means. I just think, you mean I actually get I get to be on that record that I was just, practicing with.
Yeah, you just want to play at that point.
Exactly. And so, unfortunately, that band, I learned very early on in my band chronology that yes, they do break up, and that band broke up after about 4 months, and I thought, wow, Pepperdine, is it too late?
Yeah, you're right.
I remember
it was the end of the world, right?
Yeah, I remember calling Pepperdine back and saying, listen, I've reconsidered this whole thing. Can I, is it too late to get in this semester? And they were like, no, Scott, you'll have to reapply and do the whole thing. And so I said, well, you know what? It's easier now if I just go ahead and place an ad and try to put my own band together, which I did.
Cool.
I put my own first band together. I ran an ad in the local New Times, the same publication that I already knew a couple of people through that, out crowd band. And, I put a band together, and it was actually a really good late 80s synth pop kind of band. And boom, right out of the gate, we put a demo tape out, and I get a call at my house one morning from a guy who works at EMI Records who says, I want to fly out and see the band. And we're showcasing within a month of being together. We're showcasing and doing.
Wow. So just instant success right out of the gate, basically.
Yeah. Which, again, I don't know that it's supposed to happen any differently than that, because at that point in my life, first of all, I've got the pinnacle of Jesus Christ Superstar under my belt. And then now I've got the Out Crowd, and now this other band, and it's getting interest. And so I'm thinking, well, everything that I touch here seems to turn to gold. Well, no, not so fast, because of course that band then breaks up after a few months because the lead singer, he wanted to go and be smart and do the right thing. And he wants to go to college. He wants to go back to school. So that band came to a close, and I sort of, at that point, realized, all right, this is not as easy as it looks. And just because you want to be in a rock and roll band doesn't mean you just sort of say, you're in a rock and roll band and that's going to be your living. And it was sort of sobering for me, because I sort of, finally got to have that talk from my parents, and they basically told me what I just told you, which is, just because you want it doesn't mean you're going to get it.
Right. Well, and there's so many guys out there that, that are in the music business that forget it's a business, and then you you come up against the business part of it, and you go, wow, man, this is hard.
Exactly right. And I had, at that point in my young but illustrious career, hadn't really had, outside of two bands breaking up, I hadn't really had the crushing feeling of realizing, well, I've just spent 2 years of my life at something and realized, oh no, this maybe isn't going to work out, So I sort of wised up, and I went back to school, and or actually, I think I enrolled in school, and for the first time in Arizona, and put the drums on the back burner, and kind of found myself back down wanting to become a pool shark again. I was thinking maybe that
Scott Hessel, Life of Sin.
Yes, exactly. I was down at the Memorial Union building, trying to get some action, thinking I'm and by the way, I'm not a good pool player by any stretch of the imagination. I don't know why I thought I even wanted to be a pool player, but I was terrible. So but I was, trying to sort of say, all right, I'm going to take this school thing seriously. But I always felt the calling. I always felt like, even though I'm in school, and I probably should be, taking this seriously. I don't think that I ever really fully committed myself the way I needed to, because my dream was to be a musician and to be playing in bands and doing the thing that, when I was sitting there saying, okay, I want to be what I'm hearing on this radio, this car stereo. That never left my mind all during that time. Even though for a couple of years I sort of said, okay, I'm not going to do it, I'm not going to pursue it, it was still there.
Right.
I still knew who I wanted to be or what I wanted to be when I grew up, and it had nothing to do with being a pediatrician or a veterinarian or anything, or for that matter, an attorney.
Sure.
I knew what I wanted to be.
Well,
And
once it's in your blood, it never leaves.
it's true. It's true. And so, I think at that point, I sort of said to myself, well, I'm gonna try to just stay focused and start learning to play other types of music. I, once again, kind of woodshed on my own and went back and started, faking my way through jazz records the best I could. And I went through like this fusion period where every record that I bought, like I was listening to drummers that I could never in a million years play what they were playing, but I was at least understanding. I was exposing myself to what they were doing.
Absolutely.
And that was important for me, because I don't know that I would have necessarily ever listened to certain drummers had it not been for that sort of period where I was like, okay, well, now what? What do I do? So I sort of went through my own self-schooling, as it were.
Right.
And so then we flash forward several more years, and I am playing in some bands, and I finally sort of started to get recognized again in the Tempe scene, as being a guy that was fairly, dependable and solid, and you knew what you were getting if you got me in a band. You knew that I wasn't going to be a flake. I wasn't going to be the guy that would show up for rehearsal late or not even show up.
Right.
And so I was in several of those types of bands that, just kind of played around, and people knew my name, and I was pretty happy with that. I wasn't making any money at it. But that's when I sort of had resigned myself to the fact that, yeah, you're probably not going to make any money doing this. But that was okay. I had very supportive parents, both psychologically and emotionally, and probably to a fault financially. My poor parents had sold stocks to buy me drums every Christmas.
Yeah.
And so I had all of the tools that were there. And it was just a question of, all right, am I going to just continue doing this? And so I just kept doing that and doing that. And one day I heard that a band called Gloritone, which had been signed to RCA Records, and this was probably, gosh, I should have my timeline out here, but it was in the late 90s. They had been signed to RCA Records, and they had just recorded a record. It was out on RCA, and they had started touring. Well, they ran into trouble with their drummer. They fired him, and they were looking for a drummer. And I said, okay, well, maybe this is a shot in the dark. But I knew their manager, and I said, can I get an audition? And got an audition, went up against. Looking back at it now, I think I went up against every other rock drummer in the Phoenix Tempe area.
That's the way that always works. Yeah,
it truly is. It was like a cattle call. Like I got an hour and a half. They heard me, they listened to me play their music. I learned a few songs, and I got the gig. I got the job. Great. I'm in my first signed band, and we're on RCA Records. Well,
pretty big
just
deal.
So happens, yeah, a great deal, and I felt vindicated. I felt this is it. This is the big time that I have been waiting for in my life. A few months into that, they get dropped because, sadly, or
that pesky business again, right?
Yes. Well, it was also a pesky little band that had just recently formed called the Foo Fighters.
Oh.
They too were on RCA Records, and this band that I was in called Gloritone and the Foo Fighters could not have sounded any more identical to each other, and it was truly purely by accident. And it was strange to think that it could have happened like this. Like, how sometimes, like, in the summertime, movies will come out and you'll think, why are there 5 movies that are about, a serial killer with multiple personalities? And you think, is this script leaking in Hollywood? Like, how did this happen? Well, it was almost like that. It was like the same script had been leaked to both of these bands, and they both put out records that were almost identical to each other. The difference, of course, is that the Foo Fighters, had this drummer named Dave Grohl, and who was amazing and is amazing, and RCA realized, okay, well, we have to make a decision here, and it wasn't too hard of a decision to make, but we're going to put our money with the Foo Fighters, and we're going to withdraw our support from this other band. So that band got dropped, and yet the band continued on. We continued on for actually 2 or 3 years, and really made a go of trying to get re-signed. We did just about everything we could to stay on our game. We wrote new songs. We actually self-released a couple of records, and then finally it just, it was just a deal where everybody said, well, I think that's it. We gave it our best shot here.
Yeah.
So that band disbanded, and I ended up joining another band that toured around in a minivan, and so I'm in my mid to late 30s at that point, and thinking, oh my God, is this it? Is this now what I have been waiting for my entire life? I went, I was in Gloritone, and we were touring around in a rickety RV, and I thought that was the pinnacle. And now we were traveling around in a minivan with this other band, and I was thinking, I'm going backwards with my career. What is happening? So I decided, I think I have to figure some stuff out here, and I said, I can't do this anymore. So I left that band, sort of, gave them my notice, and I really was back to square one. I knew that I wanted to continue being a drummer, but I couldn't figure out how to put it all together and make a career out of it. I thought to myself, well, yeah, I'm a drummer, but can I do this for a living?
Sure. The struggle is real for all of us, in that situation.
Truly, it truly is. And so about the time, probably a couple of years had passed, and I was going out looking for, I think I'd gotten an office job here or there, and I sort of resigned myself to the fact that, yeah, I can actually be an office job type of guy. Like who knew that I could wear a tie in my life, and even learn how to tie a tie, much less wear a tie. And I had sort of resigned myself to the fact that, okay, well, the days of being a rock and roll band touring, that's behind me. I am now officially sort of moved on. And then I find out that the Gin Blossoms are in need of a drummer. And I heard that hear it through the grapevine, through a mutual friend a mutual friend of Robin Wilson and myself. And I used to joke with this mutual friend and tell her, look, the next time the Gin Blossoms fire their drummer or he leaves or explodes behind the drum set and turns into a globule on the drum throne, please let me know. Just give me a heads up.
Yeah, that's a gig. That's a gig you'd want to, throw your hat in the ring for sure.
Absolutely, because they've had a few drummers over the years. No big surprise there, and so, but yet at the same time they've been around for a very long time. So I know, well, they have obviously stuck with it. They've had their ups and downs, and some time off here and there, but they're back, working solidly. And I know this because I've always kept my eye on them because, back in the day when I was trying to clamor for that same golden ring or the brass ring or whatever you want to call it, whatever cliche that you can use here, they had achieved it. They had gotten that.
Sure.
That thing, and they were out doing exactly what I wanted to do. So I had always been obviously incredibly envious and jealous of whatever drummer was playing in the Gin Blossoms. So I get a call finally from my friend who is at dinner with Robin, and she says to me, listen, I am not kidding you right now. I am at dinner with Robin.
Sit down and sit down and listen.
Exactly. Are you sitting? Listen to me right now. You are going to be the next Gin Blossoms drummer. Get out of here with that. I almost hang up on her. I am completely, I'm angry at her because I'm thinking she is just messing with me. And she says, no, I'm very, very serious with you. I'm going to call you tomorrow. In fact, Robin may call you tomorrow. And I'm like, okay, you know what? You've had a few too many drinks tonight. Call me in a couple of days.
Now, this was around 2012, I'm thinking?
This would have been, yes, this was 2012. So,
okay.
We're talking, there have been quite a few, there have been quite a number of down years there in between the moment when I finally get this phone call from my mutual friend, where I'm literally writing my resume to Southwest Airlines to be a flight attendant. Like that is, I don't even like to fly, by the way. I have a fear of flying. And I decided I'm just going to become a flight attendant because it looks like that, the benefits look good.
Yeah, that'll be a lot cooler than being a drummer, right?
Yeah, absolutely, right? At least you get to tour the world somehow.
There you go.
It's all. Right. So I get this phone call and I don't believe it. And I don't talk to my friend the next day. And then 2 days later, I get this, the phone rings and it's from a number that I don't recognize, but it's a local number. And so I pick up. Hi, Scott, this is Robin Wilson from the Gin Blossoms. How's you doing today? I'm like, you gotta be kidding me right now? And sure enough, Robin says, Scott, we need a new drummer. It's not official yet, but it's soon to be official that we're going to need a new drummer, and we would like you to be our drummer.
Wow.
And I remember it like it was yesterday, because I was driving on the freeway and I just about had to pull over. And I said, well, Robin, I've been waiting a great number of years for this phone call from you. But absolutely, I would love to do this. Obviously,
give me an address and an address and a time, and
yes,
and you'll see me there, right? Yeah.
Well, here's the beauty part of this is that he said, well, we should probably get together just to make sure that we don't suck together, but our next show is in Kansas City in next week.
Oh, wow.
And,
okay. So.
And I said, oh, okay. And mind you, I know the Jim Blossom songs, but I know the Jim Blossom songs at this point in my life up to, the 7 songs that are ingrained in all of our brains, like it's not as though I have the entire discography on my iPhone that I can pull up and, like I know all the songs by heart.
Right. So clearly your work was cut out for you to get up to speed in a very short period of time.
And you said a mouthful.
Yeah.
So he said, well, I will send you the 16 songs that we would like you to know for our get together. He wasn't even calling it an audition, our get together. And I said, okay. And when would you like to do this again? He said, well, how does let's see, day after tomorrow is bad for me. How about this weekend? Which I was looking at my phone and thinking, okay, that's 3 days. So I thought, all right, well, that's just enough time for me to drive home, cobble together a drum set out of the storage room. I don't have any drums set up. I don't even know that I have working, cymbals that aren't cracked. I cobble a drum set together. I get my hands on these 16 songs, and I hardcore woodshed it for 3 days.
Yeah, no sleep, I'm sure.
No sleep. The first day that I'm doing it, there's a whole process for me where I'm literally, it's like, put the songs on repeat, the iPhone repeat just over and over again, to the point where you literally you learn to, the song, but you also hate the song. And anything that you've loved about the music, you have actually at that point, you don't want to hear it anymore. Right. And you wake up the next day and the songs are going through your head, and you're thinking, okay, well, I think I've got this. So I start playing with it and I realize, oh my God, I don't even have wind to play some of these songs. Like it's like you're an athlete that's born, you got to get back on the treadmill.
Well, yeah. So, and I mean, it's no big secret that the Gin Blossoms catalog is full of songs that are at, 140, 150, 160 BPMs. I mean, they
absolutely,
they play up tempo rock songs.
And a lot of people don't realize that. They hear the ballads on the radio that are all mid tempo, and those are the classic timeless songs. But the Gin Blossoms, yeah, the majority of their set is really up tempo.
Yeah.
And so the first thing I realized was, oh my gosh, I am really going to have to, get used to this, getting on the treadmill thing again. the drumming treadmill.
Sure.
So I learn the songs as best I can, and I get in there, and it's still, I go into the audition room, and there are the dudes, and I have crossed paths with them for years. After 25 years of being in the same scene with people, people, but you don't know people.
Right.
You know their faces, you know their names, you know enough that you can make small talk with them, but it's not as though, I've ever hung out with them all of these years. They're not like, best buds or anything.
Well, and you bring up a really good point in that, you can go in and knock the songs out dead cold to rights. But
right.
If you suck as a human being and you're stuck on a 60-foot long metal tube with 4 other dudes for the next 4 months or whatever, and you're not fun to be around, playing is very important. Don't get me wrong. I don't want anybody listening to think that I'm saying the songs aren't important. They're very important. But, it's getting along with the personalities and being able to live together that makes up, so much of the chemistry of the band.
Well, and you actually steal the punchline, my punchline, which is this, that the very first thing that was imparted to me by management was, look, the Gin Blossoms, there are any number of drummers who could step in and do this job. Okay.
Sure.
But it's all about the hang, and it's all about how do you fit in with them personality wise.
Right.
And at the moment that was told to me, I thought, okay, I think I understand that. But then you actually get around the guys and you realize, how much of a brotherhood this truly is and how far back these guys really go. You realize, okay, no truer words have been spoken and no truer advice has been spoken, because it really is, there's no joke that hasn't been heard. There are no surprises when it comes to these guys and how, excuse me, they relate to each other. I mean, it's, they are brothers through and through. I mean, it's the majority of their lives have been spent in one way or the other together.
Sure. Well, and you're coming in. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm coming in like, hey, everybody, a new guy here, and the trick that I learned very quickly is, yes, you want to be able to play the songs, and you want everybody to be happy with the tempos, and you want everybody to be happy with, are you true to the original spirit of the music? But most importantly, do you get along with everybody, and can you make the dynamic of the band a positive experience, an even more positive experience than it was in its previous incarnation? Not to say that was a bad one, but to say, can you improve upon it somehow? And the last 6 years or whatever, 2012, I'm bad with math, I guess it is 6 years now, has sort of shown that yes, I have made it better. And yes, I have brought to the table staying true to the spirit of the music. But more importantly than anything, it's walking into a situation and sort of saying, I can hang. And
sure.
So after the so-called audition, non-audition, and a few days later, after the first gig in Kansas City or wherever it was, and hundreds of shows later, you realize, okay, this is it. This is exactly what I've always wanted, and it finally happened. After so many years of of thinking, okay, well, is it gonna happen this way, or is it gonna happen that way? It happened I sort of manifested exactly what I always wanted, which was to be the drummer of the Gin Blossoms somehow. I mean, I remember thinking when they were signed, I remember thinking, I want to be that drummer. And now I am.
What a
And
fantastic story.
it's, a lot of times I do have to really sort of say, and it's a surreal feeling to think about how it came about, and how I sort of, in a strange way, manifested the whole thing to play out the way it played out. I honestly did not expect that it was going to happen when it did, but it happened.
Yeah.
And that's why I feel very lucky, even when I'm looking for pairs of socks and can't find, that brick of drumsticks that I know I ordered and so forth.
Sure. That's a fantastic story. Well, Scott, we certainly want to be respectful of your time. I know you have to get ready for the tour, but if you will indulge me for just a couple of more minutes.
Sure.
I want to talk about the tour that you're actually going out on. This one's going to be really special for Gin Blossoms fans. This is the 25th anniversary of the new Miserable Experience record. Anybody that knows anything about the Gin Blossoms knows how important that record is in the history of the band. And it's my understanding that you guys are going to be playing that record from start to finish on this run of shows. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the tour? And I'm curious, are you guys mainly doing fly dates now, or are you, riding the bus, and, are you taking backline out, or are you taking your own gear, et cetera? If you could just tell us a little bit about the tour, I'd appreciate it.
Sure, no problem. Yeah, this is the celebration of the 25th, like you said, the 25th anniversary of the Miserable Experience record, and we are indeed playing the record from start to finish. We come out, not to give away, the movie before you see it, but
I don't want Robin and Jesse coming to kill me for giving this away.
Yeah, no,
so.
We're not giving away any big secrets here.
Okay.
We come out and we play the record in the order of the record, the songs in order, and then we actually play. We've been playing some songs that are sort of new. They're new to me in the sense that I had never played them before with the band. And so the first half of the show is New Miserable Experience. And then the second half of the show are the hits that you don't hear on that record, as well as some surprises and some fun covers. And we have actually, this will be the third. We're about to start the third leg of the tour. The first couple of legs, we did an East Coast thing, and then we did a West Coast leg, and then tomorrow will be the third leg, and it'll be hitting cities like Nashville and stuff, I think, in the South, and maybe a couple of East shows. I haven't looked at the itinerary probably closely enough to figure out whether or not I have to pack long johns or not. But it's actually a really fun show, and I take out my own drum set. I'm graciously and honored to be endorsed by Tama Drums, which, as I indicated earlier, was my very first drum set. And so I'm out with Tama Drums and my good friends at Peisty Cymbals and the Vic Firth. I got to give these name drops here,
sure,
or else
no.
I can't leave anybody out. Ultimate Ears, and finally Chris Brady and the fine folks at Aquarian Drumheads. And so I play all of my stuff on this tour. And as opposed to the fly dates, when a lot of times you don't necessarily, there's no guarantee that you're going to get every single type of the drum set that you want. Let's just put it that way. Some shows you show up and you're lucky to actually have a drum set. There might be a cajon sitting on stage.
Yeah, we could talk about backline all night and just cry and whine about it. So
yeah, no, it's an interesting. Let's just put it this way. It's a humbling experience to realize that yes, you are on a level where you do get things, accommodations that a lot of drummers would dream of, and then there are other nights when you truly are lucky to have a drum key and cymbals that aren't cracked in half.
Better off with Lincoln Logs and a potato chip
yes,
can.
I'm back to the Lincoln Logs. That actually, I played some shows where that would be great. Bring it on. Less of a sound check for me.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah. So, it's a really fun show. It's I think it's a very it's been a really I've gotten the vibe that it's been a really important thing to the band, and they've taken a tremendous degree in pride to be able to look back at their career and say, wow, this record was not to say that there weren't other songs that came after that record, but that was the record that obviously put them on the map, and to realize, to still be playing these songs, they are, and I'm not saying this just because I'm the drummer playing the songs now, but I always thought that they were timeless songs. And, when we're not here anymore, and when whatever form of music they'll have out there, they'll still be playing Gin Blossom songs, and
so true.
It's pretty amazing.
So true. Well, but, in the efforts of full disclosure, my lovely wife, Lisa, I would have to say that the Gin Blossoms are absolutely her favorite band. So we've had
that's awesome.
We've had the great opportunity to see many different iterations of the band over the years. And you said a mouthful in that these songs are just absolutely timeless, and we've had the great fortune to meet most of the guys in the band, and just really super good guys, all of you.
They are. They are.
And I'm including you in that as well, Scott. You've been very generous with your time, and I know that you've got to get ready to get out on the road. So certainly want to be respectful of that. One last question
sure
for you, if you don't mind. Give our listeners just your one best piece of advice. I mean, obviously your story is just amazing, ending up in your dream gig, really. But we have a lot of guys that listen to the show that, and myself included, that would love to get a call from a band that, has Grammys on the shelf and platinum records and hit the road with them. Tell us, is there a secret to success in the business? What's the advice you'd give everybody?
Well, there are a couple of things. First of all, and thank you very much. I've really enjoyed talking with you. By the way,
thank you.
This has been awesome, and you're awesome for having me, and I'm honored to be on the show. I'll tell you this. My advice for anybody, and this can, by the way, apply to a drummer. It can apply to a bassoonist. It could apply to an author. It could apply to anybody in life. You have to stay persistent, and not to be cliched, but if you're really serious about your dreams, you never give up on them. You just never give up on your dreams. You also need to have a little luck along the way. You need that break, wherever it might come from, but you also really need to be prepared for that break once you get it, because you never know when you're going to get the call. And when you do get that call, if you're not ready, then that's when you kick yourself and you say, I blew it. So you never want to be in that position where you say, oh my God, Robin just called, and man, I would have loved to have had that gig. I mean, how could you ever,
you don't
say that? How could you
right.
say that in life?
Yeah,
right?
you don't want that regret of having
correct.
said no to a gig like the Gin Blossoms.
Right. Just because you sold your drum kit 3 years ago and you haven't touched them anymore. I mean, like if I had done that, then that truly would have been the sadness of, we'd be talking about, let's talk about the sadness of your life, Scott. Well, no, the reason why we're having this talk is because I didn't give up, and it doesn't matter how old you are. And I'll also say this, rock and roll has a real weird way of keeping your outlook young. And you try not to get too cynical, about things. Try to stay positive, in the face of rejection and a lot of false starts and so forth. But you want to stay, focused on those dreams and don't give up on them. And then as far as being, in a band, the advice that I would give is just remember to listen to the musicians around you. I know, like some days, if I go on Instagram, I can listen to 20 or 30 seconds of some of the most amazing drummers. And there are moments when I literally want to just say, well, that's it. I'm putting my sticks down because I cannot do whatever they just did. In fact, I don't even know what they just did, but are we sure that this is human, what they're doing?
For sure.
Drumming?
For sure.
There are some incredible players out there. But I also know that I can say this, that some of those same players are guys or girls that men or women that will never get a chance to tour with a band because they're not playing for the song. And you have to play for the song first and foremost, and you keep everyone else in the band happy. And that means keeping them happy on stage, and then having your own thing together, whatever that is, your personality, having your life together, so that you keep everybody happy off stage as well. And it's very challenging. It's a challenge, but you have to realize that that's what keeps you working, and it's what keeps you moving forward. And so those are the two biggest pieces of advice that I could give a drummer. But then as far as, you could apply that to say anything, really, I think.
Yeah, you sure could. And amen, the First Baptist Church of Scott Hessel right here on the Drum Shuffle, right? Great words of advice. Scott, I want to thank you so much for taking time as you're getting prepared for the next leg of your tour with the Gin Blossoms, for coming on the show and sharing your story with us. I certainly would love to have you back when you get done with the tour. Let us know how everything went. And honestly, I barely scratched the surface with you. I would love to kind of dig in deeper. If you would be so kind to come back sometime in the future, we'd love to have you back.
Absolutely. We'd love to do it.
All right, Scott, have a great run out there. Again, thank you so much. Good luck with the tour, and we'll see you out there.
Okay. Thank you, Jamie. Great talking with you.
Thanks. See you too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So, folks, I mentioned at the top of the show that today's conversation with Scott was going to demonstrate his perseverance and be an inspiration to all of us. If that conversation right there doesn't do that, I don't know what would. Again, many thanks to Scott Hessel for joining us. That's going to wrap up show number 2 of the Drum Shuffle podcast. Please go out and see the Gin Blossoms on their new Miserable Experience 25th anniversary tour when it comes through your area. I really hope that you found today's show entertaining and helpful. I also hope that you'll take the time to reach out to us with questions or show suggestions at the drumshufflepodcast@gmail.com. TheDrumShuffle.com is our web address, and you can also find me over at jamieeads.com. Please take a moment also to give us a rating or review on iTunes, Stitcher, or whatever platform you're using to listen. Until next time, may your head stay strong and your sticks never break. Cheers.